Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. Today we're diving deep into the world of podcasting. If you've ever dreamt of sharing your voice, your stories, your passions with the world, podcasting is an incredible avenue. And guess what? It's not as complicated as you might think. In this video, I'm going to break down a step-by-step guide to help you launch your podcast and, even better, start monetizing it. Whether you're a complete beginner or you've already dipped your toes into the podcasting waters, this guide is packed with actionable tips and strategies to help you succeed. Let's get started. All right, let's kick things off by talking about the heart of your podcast, the content itself. Now, you might be thinking, Cipriano, I've got a million ideas. That's awesome. But before you hit record, let's make sure you're set up for success. First things first, audio quality. You don't need a fancy studio, but a decent microphone can make all the difference. Trust me, your listeners will thank you. There are tons of great options out there, but a good USB mic is a great place to start. Next up, editing. Don't worry, you don't need to be a sound engineer. Free software like Audacity or GarageBand work wonders, or you can level up with Adobe Audition if you're feeling fancy. The key here is to clean up your audio, remove any background noise, and make sure your podcast sounds polished. Now let's talk about your podcast cover art. Think of it as the first impression for your show. Aim for a resolution of at least 1400 by 1400 pixels and get creative. Canva is a fantastic tool for designing eye-catching cover art, even if you don't have any design experience. Don't forget your podcast description. This is your chance to hook potential listeners and tell them what your show is all about. Keep it concise, engaging, and clear. Think about what keywords people might use to search for a podcast like yours. Finally, let's talk about your trailer episode. This is a short, punchy introduction to your podcast, usually around 1 to 2 minutes long. Think of it as your podcast's movie trailer. Highlight the best parts of your show, introduce yourself, and leave listeners wanting more. Now that you've got your content ready to go, it's time to find the perfect hosting platform for your podcast. Think of this as your podcast's home base. There are a ton of great options out there, each with its own strengths and pricing plans. Some popular choices include Buzzsprout, Anchor, which is owned by Spotify, Libsyn, Podbean, and Captivate. Take some time to explore each platform, compare their features and pricing, and see which one best fits your needs and budget. Once you've chosen your hosting platform, it's time to upload your episodes and fill in all the important details like your podcast title, description, and category. This information helps listeners find your show and understand what it's all about. Now here's a crucial step, generating your RSS feed. Your RSS feed is basically a special link that contains all the information about your podcast and its episodes. Your hosting platform will provide you with this feed, and you'll use it to submit your podcast to different directories. With your podcast hosted and your RSS feed ready, it's time to get your show out into the world. This is where podcast directories come in. Think of them as the big search engines for podcasts, where listeners go to discover new shows. First up, we've got Spotify, one of the biggest players in the podcasting game. Head over to Spotify for podcasters, sign in with your Spotify account, or create one if you haven't already, and click that Get Started button. From there, you'll paste your RSS feed, and Spotify will take care of the rest. Next, let's tackle Apple Podcasts, another podcasting giant. You'll need to create an Apple ID if you don't have one already, and then head over to Apple Podcasts Connect. This is your hub for managing your podcast on Apple Podcasts. Once you're logged in, click the plus sign to add your podcast, paste in your RSS feed, and follow the steps to submit your show for review. Now let's move on to Google Podcasts. Go to Google Podcasts Manager, click Start Now, and sign in with your Google account. Once you're in, you'll paste your RSS feed, verify that you own the podcast, and hit Submit. And of course, we can't forget about Amazon Music. Go to Amazon Music Podcasters, log in, and look for the option to add or submit your podcast. You know the drill by now. Paste in your RSS feed and follow the on-screen instructions. Finally, let's submit your podcast to Stitcher. Head over to the Stitcher Partner Portal, create an account if you need to, and then look for the Add Your Podcast button. You'll be prompted to enter your RSS feed and some basic information about your show. Now that you're on the road to podcasting success, let's talk about turning your passion into profit. Yes, you heard that right. You can actually make money from your podcast. One popular monetization method is sponsorships and ads. As your podcast grows and you build a loyal audience, brands may reach out to you to sponsor your show or run ads during your episodes. Some hosting platforms, like Buzzsprout and Anchor, have built-in ad networks that can connect you with potential sponsors. Others, like Libsyn, allow you to use third-party ad networks. Another great option is listener donations. Platforms like Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee allow your listeners to support your show financially through recurring donations. You can offer exclusive content, behind-the-scenes access, or other perks to your supporters. Some hosting platforms like Podbean even have built-in features for accepting listener support. Affiliate marketing is another fantastic way to monetize your podcast. Essentially, you recommend products or services that you love and use, and if your listeners make a purchase through your unique affiliate link, you earn a commission. Just make sure the products or services you're promoting are relevant to your podcast's theme and audience. If you're creating high-quality, valuable content, you might want to consider offering premium content. Platforms like Podbean and Supercast allow you to charge for premium episodes, exclusive content, or even access to a private community. And finally, let's talk about dynamic ad insertion. This advanced technique allows you to insert ads into your podcast episodes after they've been published. This means you can update your ads over time, target specific listener demographics, and potentially earn more revenue. Dynamic ad insertion is typically offered by hosting platforms like Libsyn and Anchor. Creating amazing content is just one piece of the puzzle. To truly grow your podcast and reach a wider audience, you need to actively promote it. Thankfully, there are tons of effective strategies you can use to get your podcast in front of more listeners. Social media is your best friend when it comes to podcast promotion. Share your episodes on all your social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, you name it. Create engaging captions, use relevant hashtags, and tag other podcasters or guests you've had on your show. Speaking of guests, collaborating with other podcasters is a fantastic way to cross-promote your shows and reach new audiences. Reach out to podcasters in your niche and see if they'd be interested in doing an interview swap or collaborating on an episode together. Don't forget about podcast directories beyond the big ones we covered earlier. Websites like Podchaser and Podcast Addict are great places to submit your podcast and get discovered by new listeners. If you have an email list or a blog, leverage those channels to promote your podcast as well. Share new episode announcements, highlight interesting snippets from your episodes, or even create blog posts that complement your podcast content. And remember, consistency is key when it comes to podcast promotion. Don't be afraid to experiment with different strategies, track your results, and see what works best for your show. Congratulations on launching and monetizing your podcast. Now, it's time to put on your analytical hat and delve into the world of podcast analytics. Your hosting platform is your go-to source for tracking your podcast's performance. You'll find a wealth of data, including the number of downloads your episodes are getting, listener demographics like age, location, and interests, and even information about how people are listening to your show, like what apps or devices they're using. Pay close attention to your download numbers. This metric gives you a good sense of how many people are tuning in to your podcast. You can track downloads over time to see how your audience is growing and identify any spikes or dips in listenership. Understanding your listener demographics is crucial for tailoring your content and monetization strategies. For example, if you discover that a large portion of your audience is interested in a particular topic, you might consider creating more episodes around that subject. If you're running ads or sponsorships, your hosting platform will likely provide you with data on ad performance, such as the number of impressions, clicks, and conversions. This information can help you optimize your ad campaigns and attract more sponsors. Remember, podcasting is a marathon, not a sprint. It takes time to build an audience and generate revenue. Don't get discouraged if you don't see results overnight. Wow, you made it. We covered a lot of ground today, from crafting your content to launching your podcast and exploring different monetization strategies. Remember, the most important thing is to take action and get started. By following these steps, you'll have your podcast on major platforms and be ready to share your voice with the world. Don't be afraid to experiment, learn from your experiences, and most importantly, have fun along the way. Thanks for watching and happy podcasting.